Hello everyone, welcome to the Roller Coaster Maniac channel. In today's video, I'm going to review Wrath of Rakshasa for the second time. Why? Well, I've ridden it much more than when I reviewed it the first time, and I have a much better feel for the whole experience. You can say that I'm milking content, but there's aspects to the ride that weren't a part of Rakshasa until later in the season, so I feel that warrants a second review. Now, without any more yapping, let's review Wrath of Rakshasa again. Now, as you drive up from Chicago, the ride's stature is making itself known very quickly. It stands out as a blue and yellow beast at the center of the park, dwarfing the nearby demon, which is also viewable from the highway. Somehow. Upon pulling into the parking lot, the ride continues to look huge. Just listen to my reaction to seeing the ride from that vantage point on opening day. Look at Wrath. Alright, look at this place, dude. Wow. Wrath is big. It's a big boy. Oh, it's gonna be weird to see it from inside the park and not out. Yeah, that's the sound of a coaster nerd in his natural state. Anyway, after getting out of your car and walking into the park, or marching from the back of the lot if it's Fright Fest, the B&M track sticks out from the right side of the carousel, making Wrath of Rakshasa a new part of your entry experience. Taking the right past the carousel, Top Thrill 2's Mormon cousin, and eventually Whizzer, you are met with a beautiful view of the first drop, Immelman, and the Wrath roll. Continuing forward, you walk beneath sections of track and are eventually met with a very long line of people. You are now about to enter into the Rakshasa exhibition. The line itself is actually pretty decent for a Six Flags coaster. As you pass under the sign, you'll pass two Rakshasa statues. Both of these guys are really cool looking, especially at night. They also have butts for some reason. I don't know why that detail is there, but it is present. Beyond that, there are some pieces of information in the switchback section in the form of artwork and, well, information on the Rakshasa. Following the switchbacks, there really isn't any theming until the station. You do get some really stellar views of the ride in action, however. The station is also very cool in my opinion. First, you store your loose articles into a moving storage bin, and those very loose articles will meet you at the exiting side of the station. This is the same setup found at Yukon Striker or Alpenfury at Canada's Wonderland, and I am a huge fan of it. There are some cool pieces of artwork in the form of banners surrounding the station as well. The station also features some scratch marks near the ceiling, and these have some awesome lighting effects at night, but we'll get to the effects portion in a bit. Also in the station is one of 3 trains. These are your standard modern B&M mini dive trains. They seat 7 across in rows of 3. The trains have a really cool glowing red eye design in the front of them. The seats themselves are fairly accommodating, and the restraints are polarizing. Why? Well, for some, the vest restraints hurt their collarbones, which I can understand. For others like me, they don't hurt, but can be annoying, and we'll talk about that later. Now, let's break down the ride itself. Wrath of Rakshasa begins with a right-hand turn out of the station, which for some reason is kind of bumpy in some seats. That then transfers into the 180-foot-tall lift hill. This lift hill is fast, quiet, and offers stellar views. I especially love the views of Raging Bull, Viper, Demon, and American Eagle offered on the left side of the train. That view lasts shortly because you then top out and get an even better, broader view of the rest of the park and surrounding area. This is very comparable to the view on Valraven, but on a slightly smaller scale. This view follows the gimmick, the dive. The train is held for 3 seconds at a staggering height of 180 feet. The GP like to scream very loud at this point, and I don't really blame them. After about 10 rides on it, the initial magic of it wore off on me, but it's still an enjoyable moment. Those 3 seconds are short-lived, and the train then is released into the 96-degree, 171-foot first drop. This is another great moment on the ride. The whole train gets amazing floater air, with the back row getting the strongest airtime. That row has borderline ejector, and I personally love the drop back there. The pullout delivers intense positive forces in the front 2 rows near the center of the train, and I'll touch on why in the next segment. The G's continue about halfway up the next element, the Immelman. This is just an okay element. It gives some okay hang time at the top of it, but the train travels too quickly for the hang time to be sub-0 Gs. The train begins to build up speed once again going into the next valley, stacking on even more strong positive Gs in the same center seats in the front 2 rows. That's an interesting trend. This moment isn't quite as good as the first, but it is still great. The next element is the dive loop. This is the reverse of the Immelman, but it is very good. It is much better than the Immelman in my opinion. This has some great hang time at the top and is profiled in a way where you get a tiny hint of laterals throughout the top half of the descent. Speaking of, the next valley is probably the second strongest on the ride. The whole train gets decent to very strong positive forces, and I adore this moment. Rakshasa follows this element up with one of the best inversions in the entire country, the underflip treble clef. The wrath roll, whatever you want to call this masterpiece of a maneuver. The train begins to rotate into a 0G roll, but the right side of the train is trying not to get laterally ejected from the Rakshasa's wrath, as it mercilessly twists the train. The roll gives some solid hang time and laterals for most, with the center of the train getting more hang time, the left half getting the best mix of both, and the right half getting both of them, but too strong to tell which force is being applied on your body. This roll continues into a leftward helix, and this gives the right side of the train a pop of ejector. This particular moment was insanely strong during the summer months, where I felt helpless in some cases. The helix offers some fine forces, but they'd be better if the track were smoother. Rakshasa then starts its finale. The first part is its demonic knot. These are 2 0G rolls mixed into one maneuver, and they're both great. The first one has some good whip and hang for the whole train. The following turn is easily the best moment for positive forces on the ride. It has some very strong G-forces there. The second inversion of the element and the final inversion of the ride has the best hang time on the whole ride. This is on par with the inline twists of X-Flight or Thunderbird. If you are familiar with those rides, that element feels like an upside-down ejector airtime moment. This is no different. Rakshasa finishes off with an S-hill. This has some okay force, but the left side of the train does get lurched forward on the twist. Rakshasa then rockets and snaps into the final brakes, finishing your experience. In the modern day, B&M isn't really known for rough coasters, usually. Over the past few years, B&M has had some pretty nasty reports of bad rattles or bumps on the manufacturer's rides, and this was going to be my personal first experience with this issue. So, was it really that bad? Well, it depends on the day, row, and seat. The front offers the smoothest experience with the center seats feeling perfectly butter smooth. The second row is okay, but you could still feel track imperfections. However, the back is bad. The entire row is terrible, and it could be worse if the ride is running slow, at least in my experience. The worst areas of bumpiness are the first, second, and third valleys. Also, the helix of the wrath roll going into the demonic knot are pretty bad as well. The worst areas of shaking or jolting are on the first inversion of the demonic knot, the S-hill, and the S-hill. Yeah, the entire S-hill is the worst part of the ride for roughness, but I really do get a kick out of it. It adds character, and I'm really not too upset by that. Like I mentioned earlier, Wrath of Rakshasa has some really good effects at night, the most interesting of which are on the sign as well as on the lift hill. The lights on both turn red when the coaster drops off of the dive, and they look great. There's also the Rakshasa in a box with the same effect, but with the addition of fog. These aren't anything huge, but it is enough to appreciate. Now, what is my number rating for Wrath of Rakshasa? I give this coaster an 8.5 out of 10. I personally love the layout, but the rattle takes it away from a 9 score. I would love to see if Great America would take some time this off-season to see if B&M is free and they could come and fix the worst parts of this ride, especially that S-hill. Once again, thank you all for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe for more videos just like this one in the near future. Bye-bye, everyone.